I genuinely didn't think the legendaries could be made any better, but I think Game Freak just went and made them better. Just yesterday, Game Freak released 2 all-new forms for the legendary Pokemon, a form called Radiant Sun Phase for Solgaleo, and a form called Full Moon Phase for Lunala. Personally, I'm totally in love with both designs, and I'm especially a big fan of Lunala's design. Supposedly, somebody actually calculated the stats of Solgaleo and Lunala using some damage they did to opposing Pokemon in the trailers, and they're going to have between base 140 and I think 150 HP, in addition to Solgaleo having around base 150 physical attack, and Lunala having around base 150 special attack. And you're telling me that these things are going to get even stronger on top of that? That's absurd! I love how much attention Game Freak is paying to the legendaries for Sun and Moon. Thinking back, we have had some pretty neglected legendaries like Zygarde for instance, so it is nice to see Solgaleo and Lunala getting this much attention. Anyways, on to the main purpose of this video, I want to briefly talk about exactly what these forms are. Are they perhaps form changes taken on when the Pokemon holds an item, as was the case with Giratina and Platinum? Or maybe there's something akin to a Primal or a Mega Evolution? Or perhaps there's something else entirely? If I had to say, I think they're going to be similar to Primal Evolutions, but let's still go ahead and consider all the options here. If these form changes are brought on by giving the Pokemon an item to hold, then I am going to be a little disappointed because it sort of takes the dynamic element of Mega Evolutions out of the picture. I don't think this will end up being the case though, because hold item form changes are pretty much obsolete ever since they introduced Mega and Primal Evolutions. Mega Evolutions are basically the same thing as the hold item form change that Giratina had, except the change happens during battle instead, and if Game Freak has a mechanic like that, they're probably going to make use of it. Something like a Primal or Mega Evolution is definitely more likely for this reason, but I don't think it's going to be called a Primal Evolution even if it does function like one. I expect Game Freak to change up the name for rebranding purposes and perhaps to just mix things up in general. I also expect it will use those stones on the Japanese titles for the games in some way. Even still, there's a third option I want to consider here, and that's the idea of Solgaleo and Lunala naturally going through phase changes in battle without the assistance of a Megastone or any sort of hold item for that matter. Let me put it this way, this idea is sort of like Darmanitan's Zen form, where at certain points in battle Solgaleo and Lunala will change form, except in this case it wouldn't be because of their abilities, since we already know their abilities and they have nothing to do with these forms. The reason why I bring up this idea is their forms aren't technically called forms, but rather phases. And when I hear the word phase, I personally don't think of a Primal or Mega Evolution, but rather some sort of shifting state. Once again, I still think the Primal Evolution option is the correct one, but it's important to consider all possibilities and cover our bases, no matter how unlikely they may be. If Solgaleo and Lunala can indeed change phase in the manner I just described, this would be something we've never seen before. The only way Pokemon of the past have been able to change form is pretty much either via a held item, a Mega Evolution, or an ability, but in this scenario Solgaleo and Lunala would naturally change form and have these phases accessible without the help of any external resource or ability gimmick. For this reason, I'm hoping that of all the options, it's the third option, even if I do think the third one is far and wide the least likely. Giving us a copy and paste of the Primal Evolution mechanic would be still fun, but a tad boring and repetitious, while phase shifting during a battle would be totally new and super fun to play around with. Which is why I'm hoping to see something like this in Sun and Moon. Well, alright folks, that is pretty much gonna do it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed the video or if you found it informative, I would appreciate you dropping a like down below and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already for more Pokemon Sun and Moon content in the future. And of course, be sure to let me know your own thoughts on all this information down below. Do you suspect that this will be something like a Primal Evolution, or do you think it'll be something different? Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video.